In that regard, I put it in the past tense just because you'll understand when I ask the question. A friend of mine whose sister went missing, and the federal authorities would not get involved because, as you know, they don't declare a kidnapping unless there's some overt evidence or some time passes, particularly back in that day. And then I noticed that our friendship was affected because they ultimately found his sister in a ditch and she had been raped and murdered. And it was because he had reached out to me to get the federal authorities involved. It was almost as if he associated me with that awful event. When I speak with you, or when you speak about the program and what you have chosen as your life work, you are invariably described as the father of a murdered, missing child. How do you deal with that psychic burden, the fact that Adam's murder is part of your everyday life, lo, these almost 3 decades later?
I walked in the shoes of all the people who come to us as the last resort. And the huge frustration was that for years I believed I knew who killed Adam and that they had bungled the evidence, and Otis Toole had died in prison on death row for many other crimes. Was one of the motivators. I kept saying, if I can't get justice for myself, and I mounted the biggest search in the history of Florida with lots of my wealthy and influential friends, and I was lucky to have success early in life. And
you
all
were
those
a
things.
hotel developer.
We were building a $26 million hotel on Paradise Island. I was a young guy. I had 3 partners. I went to private school. I had all those great advantages. My father was a World War II hero, well known in our town. Very handsome guy, first guy to graduate in his family from Notre Dame. You know, Irish immigrants as my grandparents. But I had all those wonderful opportunities that most people don't get. And I kept saying to myself, if I can't get justice, if I can't get the cops to do the right thing, someday I'm going to solve Adam's case, but I got to be the voice for those voiceless. You know, I have to be the one, maybe, that through this television show, I can get back without being a vigilante. Certainly it's given me a huge high profile. I used to wait for hours to see congressmen and governors. Once I became a TV guy, it was right in the door for the photo op. And then I would get them in the headlock, say, I'll be in your newsletter if you listen to this bill, or we need to do this type of thing. It was a motivator along the way to try to solve Adam's case, to try to get justice, and also to say, we are the voice of the voiceless. We are the court of last resort. And it was a great motivator for me. It wasn't about that I was just the father of a murdered child. I had one of those dads that said, saddle up and fight back. If you're going down, go down swinging. And I had this opportunity to have millions of people, and I would say on the show, it's my bully pulpit, and I don't try to hide that. When something is opposed, I tell the public, I say, this is a good piece of legislation. Like you said, doesn't matter what side of the aisle. It's not right, left, it's bipartisan. It's for the people. And it was my pulpit, and it energized me. It still energizes me. You know, I mean, it was a wonderful experience to go to the White House yesterday. I had met Barack Obama when he was a rookie. He talked about it. He said, I met you on the halls of Congress when I was a rookie senator, and you stopped and talked to me. And I didn't know who Barack Obama was, except that he was you know, a freshman senator. But the show is that pulpit. It is that high profile. I get to catch the uncatchable. I get to put millions of eyes to someone who has no voice, to someone who was murdered 30 years ago, or to a missing child that nobody's looking for except in that town where that child was missing. So it was always an energizer, you know.
Start thinking of your questions. I'll continue. I've got a million of them, but I would like to hear what your questions would be. So there are microphones in either aisle, so just indicate to the gentleman with the microphones. How do you and Reve, your wife, deal with, you have the 3 lovely children now, right? Adult children, or a teenager and 2 adult children. You deal every day with the open wounds of families, much like you were 30 years ago. It's not just that you are doing if we do a program about a space launch or even a natural disaster, whatever it is, there is a certain emotional detachment often, and with most reporters. But in your particular case, the field that you till is exactly what you two suffered through. Does it make you more empathetic? How do you deal with the psychic burden of it?
Well, first of all, Reve was the one who said years and years ago, 28 years ago now, when after Adam's murder, and we were spiraling into hell and my business was descending to nowhere. I couldn't go to work. I'd lost almost 30 pounds. We had these 40,000 letters in the garage that people had sent us from all over the United States. Adam's parents, Adam's Hollywood, Florida, etc. And Reve kept reading the letters. They were, I have a teenage runaway, my non-custodial wife took our kids, we have all the problems with children. She was the one who said, we got to remember who the real victim was here. Adam was the real victim. He went through the kidnapping. She was always cut to the chase. And we had lots of problems, unbearable problems, because 90% of the parents of missing children, at least that, wind up in divorce. We were blessed with these children, but she always had the focus.
90% of parents
They say between 80, I say 90, because I've never met anybody that's really made it through it.
From the stress of the event.
You have nothing in common but the horrible murder, the horrible memories. And she was the one who said, go out and try to battle for the Missing Children's Bill, which was my mission, and she started the National Center out of our garage. And I've always tried to keep that focus, and she's the one that says, when you come home and you want to do something with the kids, you leave the blood and gore and guts. Don't bring it up at the table. We don't want to. That's your job if you can deal with it. So I always try to keep the focus on, because I've been there. I begged for that help for 2 weeks. I begged for someone to cover Adam's case. I begged for years for people to get involved and help me investigate. I know what it is when those doors are slammed, when you've hit that wall, when there's nobody there to help you. So I always try to keep that in perspective, that who's the real victim? And maybe we can make a difference. And not the cliche of making a difference. There is that aspect of hope, and there is that tiny little light that if you can use your influence and what you know and how you know to do it better, and you can't let it break you down. It will break you down. It'll break your heart, but you have to remember who the victim is.